There are a lot of myths that have existed throughout Ford Motor Company's history, and most of them revolve around Henry Ford's thriftiness disguised as innovation. Case in point, his use of scrap metal in the production of cars. Have you ever seen this film before from the Ford archives? Because it is a prime example of Henry Ford making people think he was doing one thing when it's really another outcome he was achieving. It starts here with a couple 29 AA's unloading car haulers full of dilapidated vehicles. It eventually goes on to show these junk jalopies being unceremoniously stripped down and smashed before being dropped into a furnace without any bit of reverence. Without context, most people familiar with Ford Motor Company operations would look at this and think it's Henry Ford's desire to save money just by using up scrap metal instead of producing new stuff from raw materials. But the River Rouge was one of the most efficient manufacturing plants in the world, and Ford had his own supply chains of raw material as well as his own steel mills to produce steel at a price far below other companies. While Henry did recycle a lot of scrap, including a large fleet of decommissioned World War I Navy ships, his motive in scrapping these cars wasn't necessarily to get cheap material. It was to sell cars he had already built. You see, in the 1920s, Ford Motor Company had an inventory problem, a used car inventory problem. The unintentional consequences of making the automobile affordable for everyone to own was that there were just too many cars out there on the roads. While ultimately this was a good problem for Ford, seeing as how at least half of the cars on American roads were Fords, it became a problem when people decided they wanted to replace their old car with a new Model A. You see, Ford dealers across America were dealing with an increasing number of people trading in their old car in order to purchase a new Ford. Many of these old vehicles had outlived their usefulness or required extensive work in order to get them back into shape where they could be resold. With dealers complaining about their used car lots filling up with undesirable junkers or losing sales because of a low trade-in value on a used car, Ford started a new program for these unwanted old vehicles. Ford decided they would pay dealers a flat rate for derelict cars taken in on trade for a new Ford. These cars were then shipped to the River Rouge plant where they were put on a moving disassembly line. On that line, workers would start to torch off and strip down different parts of the junker, including rubber tires, glass, cloth tops, and some wood components. This work was done at the open hearth plant of the Rouge complex. After the different components were stripped from the car, it would be pushed into a hydraulic compactor that would compress the vehicle into as small of a shell as it could. These blocks of iron and steel were then used for cold scrap charges in one of the numerous 100-ton open hearths. In his book, My 40 Years with Ford, Charles Sorensen stated, quote, "In costs, we did not come out ahead on this somewhat cannibalistic but spectacular operation, but indirectly it helped us sell more cars." While some watching this video may find it a crime to have destroyed these vehicles, we need to remember that at the time, these were just old, used cars, whose worth lay only in being repurposed into something new. Besides, the steel in your Model A today could have at one point been one of these scrapped cars.